Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I say, call hello, Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Makar, Kodash. We send double honor to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to Yakim out there pushing the word of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, in sincerity and truth. This is the brother Ariella. This is a response to the Elder Yashawamba's video that he posted. Can we keep the Passover outside of Jerusalem? Can we keep the Passover outside of Jerusalem? And all I wanted to do is kind of go over some practical understanding of why it was important to go to Jerusalem for those feast days. Now, in this lesson, if you watch Elder Yashawamba's lesson, he breaks down why it's not necessary for us to go to Jerusalem to keep the Passover. When you understand the scriptures, understand the history of Israel, and go through things and break it down spiritually. I'm going to play one part of this clip at the end of this, but what I wanted to do was add some practical understanding. Now, when you go to Gronk, and at the top of this, you ask Gronk, about the history of these feast days, and then I asked another question. I said, what was the importance of having to go to Jerusalem for high holy days? I'm going to read through this quickly and then get down to another point. Okay. It says the importance of going to Jerusalem for the high holy days, specifically Passover, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, known collectively as the three pilgrimage festivals, stem from religious, social, and national dimensions in ancient Israelite life. This requirement was rooted in biblical commandments and reinforced by the central role of Jerusalem as the spiritual and political heart of the nation. All right? So it gives these different talking points. I'm going to read a few of them. And I'll move quickly. It says divine command and covenant obedience. The obligation to appear in Jerusalem for these festivals was explicitly mandated in the Torah. Deuteronomy 16:16. 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord your power. All right, at the place that He will choose of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. Okay, notice it's talking about the males needing to report in. Okay, and then it gives some precepts of Exodus 23, Exodus 34. All right. It says the place he would choose was understood as Jerusalem once King David established it as the capital and Solomon built the temple. All right. Going to Jerusalem was an act of obedience to the Most High, reinforcing the covenant between him and the Israelites, and demonstrated their commitment to his laws and their identity as his chosen people. Number 2 was the centralized worship in the temple. Elder Yashawamba touches in on this, right? The temple in Jerusalem was the sole legitimate site for sacrificial worship after the centralization of the cult under King Yoshia's reforms. All right, and then it mentions 2 Kings 23. For Passover, the sacrifice of the Paschal lamb was a core ritual. All right. Deuteronomy 16:5 through 6 explicitly forbids offering it outside the designated place. All right. Let's see. Basically, centralized place of worship, and that's why this place is important. National unity and identity. The pilgrimage festivals brought together Israelites from all 12 tribes, right? And later Jews from Judah and diaspora to one central location. This fostered a sense of national cohesion, especially vital in a tribal society prone to division. Jerusalem, as both the religious and political capital, symbolized the Most High's presence via the temple and the Davidic monarchy. Gathering there reminded the people of their shared history, Exodus from Egypt, right? Receiving the Torah and the dwelling in the wilderness. Okay, you see, so coming to Jerusalem was kind of like a family reunion, reminding you of who you are and where you came from. So that was important. 4, spiritual renewal and connection to the Most High. The physical act of traveling to Jerusalem was a spiritual discipline requiring effort, preparation, and often sacrifice, especially for those far away. Standing before the Lord in the temple courts during these festivals offered a direct encounter with the divine presence, believed to dwell in the Holy of Holies. right? But now what is it? Yahweh Shem Yahushua dwell? He dwells within us, which we're gonna get to that part. But I just want to continue this on the practical reasons, some of the reasons why it was important for us to go to Jerusalem at that in those times. Okay, it says the high holidays were times of atonement, celebration, and thanksgiving, and being in Jerusalem heightened the sense of holiness. Okay. It says, for example, during Passover, the communal eating of the lamb in the holy city linked the individuals to the original redemption event, right? Economic and social benefits. It says the pilgrimage had practical ripple effects economically. It supported Jerusalem and the priesthood through tithes, offering, and trade, i.e., animals for sacrifice, lodging for pilgrims. Socially, it was a time of festivity. Families reunited, marriages were arranged, see that? And communal meals strengthened bonds. The Torah even promised divine protection for the land during these journeys. No one will covet your land when you go up to appear before the Lord, your power, 3 times a year, right? And since we're not under that covenant, since we've been broken from that covenant, is that protection there for us for now? No. Okay, that's why we asked the question: if you're going to go to Jerusalem now, what are you going? What are you going to? If you're going to make that pilgrimage to Jerusalem to keep the Passover, where are you going? Or are you going to you going to go and do sacrifices in the temple? No, it's defiled anyway with heathens, you know. But these are some of the reasons why it was important in the ancient times, because we had this all set up and we had capabilities then. Capabilities that we've lost, that we're going to have to follow Yahweh, preach the word, and be empowered and glorified to come back and do these things again. All right. Number 6 says, before Jerusalem's centrality in the wilderness of the Judges period, like for example, worship was more localized, and after the temple's destruction in 70 CE, it became home-based. See that? The Jerusalem requirement marked a unique era when the physical and spiritual converged in one sacred place. During the Second Temple period, this was so significant that historians like Josephus note massive crowds, hundreds of thousands flocking to Jerusalem at Passover, requiring over 250,000 lambs. Let's see. Jerusalem's elevation as a chosen place tied to its sanctity. David brought the Ark of the Covenant, 2 Samuel 6, and Solomon temple housed it, making it the Most High's earthly dwelling, 1 Kings 8, 10 through 13. Its geographic centrality in Judah and symbolic height on Mount Zion amplified its status. The prophets and Psalms, Psalms 122, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, cemented its role in the spiritual epicenter. Okay, so now I asked the question, was there more practical reasons such as registration of births or land rights that caused a need for the journey? Okay, now check this. It says, while the primary reasons for the pilgrimage to Jerusalem during the high holy days were religious, rooted in divine commandment, centralized worship, and national unity, there's evidence and scholarly speculation that practical, administrative, or socioeconomic factors could have played secondary roles in necessitating or reinforcing the journey. These were explicitly mandated by the Torah as reasons for the pilgrimage, right? But they likely emerged as practical byproducts or incentives, especially during historical periods. Number 1, registration of births, genealogies, and tribal identity. In the biblical context, it says the Torah doesn't directly tie the pilgrimage festivals to birth registration, but maintaining tribal and family identity was crucial in ancient Israel. The temple and its priesthood served as a central record-keeping hub. For instance, Numbers 1 through 4 detailed censuses tied to tribal affiliations. The priests were responsible for genealogical records. During the Second Temple period, all right, like 500 BCE to 70, genealogies remained vital for proving priestly lineage, like what we read about in Ezra and Nehemiah. All right, that he Gronk here lists Ezra 2, 62 through 30, 62 and 63. All right, where some were excluded from priesthood due to lost records. All right, after the Babylonian captivity. It says practical link. Pilgrimages offered a chance to update or verify lineage with the priests in Jerusalem, especially for families from distant regions. This was crucial for inheritance rights, as land was apportioned to tribe and clan. You can read about that in Numbers 26 and 52. Take notes on this, because when we would come back to Jerusalem, the men would come back and they would have to update, hey man, I had another son or a daughter, or my son got married to such and such. And if they was of a particular line, let's say they was of the tribe of Reuben, then there's different land rights to those lands in the area of Reuben that they would have right to expand on, grow in. They had to be verified in Jerusalem. Coming back 3 times a year for the high holy days, of course, you have the spiritual reasons and the worship, but then you have these other practical reasons why that was done. See? Okay? It says a father might bring a newborn son to be presented or recorded during a festival, aligning with the command for all males to appear, Deuteronomy 16:16. While not a formal requirement, the convergence of thousands in Jerusalem made it a natural time for such administrative acts. All right. Evidence. The New Testament's account of Yahweh's presentation at the temple, Luke 2:22-24, though tied to purification laws, Leviticus 12, hints at a broader custom of bringing children to Jerusalem, possibly overlapping with festivals. See that? All right. 2. Land rights and tithes. Biblical context. Land in Israel was divinely allotted to tribes and families, right? Joshua, you can go and get these scriptures. And its ownership was inalienable under the Jubilee system. The pilgrimage festivals were tied to the agricultural cycle. Passover, the barley harvest, all right, Shavuot, the wheat harvest, Sukkot, the fruit harvest, and required bringing tithes and offering to the temple. You see, because you have the Feast of First Fruits. You're bringing all of these things in, right? When you read about Passover, they're bringing the first parts of like the green, and then you go on and so forth. All right, practical link. Bringing tithes to Jerusalem involved interaction with priests and Levites who managed these offerings. This could double as an opportunity to affirm land holdings or resolve disputes, as the temple was a legal and religious authority. For example, if a family's land was contested, appearing in Jerusalem with their produce as proof of cultivation might reinforce their claim. The command to not appear before the Lord empty-handed, Deuteronomy 16:16, ensured economic activity that tied people to their land output. Historical example. During the Second Temple period, the influx of pilgrims, noted by Josephus, as numbering in the hundreds of thousands, suggests a system for tracking contributions, possibly linked to land records. The Hasmonean and Roman administrations later imposed taxes, and pilgrimage times have overlapped with such obligations, though it is less clear for earlier periods. See that? Let's see. Census and taxations by the Second Temple period under Roman rule. Practical reasons like census taken for taxation could have intersected with pilgrimages. The famous census in Luke 2, where Joseph and Mary traveled to Bethlehem, isn't directly tied to a festival, but it shows how Roman bureaucracy leveraged travel. Let's see. A practical incentive. For Jews, combining a festival trip with administrative duties, registering property and taxes, could have made the journey more efficient, especially for those from Galilee or the diaspora traveling long distances. Okay? All right. Let's go. Trade, commerce, and social transactions. Jerusalem swelled in an economic center during festivals. Pilgrims brought animals for sacrifice, paid for lodging, and traded goods. This bustle, i.e. the money changers Yahushua expelled, suggests practical incentives beyond worship. Families might settle debts, arrange marriages, and register contracts, right? land deals. While the Torah forbids permanent land sales outside of Jubilee, leases or boundary disputes could be adjudicated by priests or elders in Jerusalem. This pilgrimage provided a rare gathering of tribal leaders, making it pragmatic time for such matters, right? Let's see. Security and legal oversight. Divine assurance. Exodus 34:24 promises that no one will cover your land during the pilgrimage, implying that leaving home was a risk. Centralizing these events in Jerusalem under the king and temple's protection ensured safety and order. Disputes over births or land could be settled by authoritative figures present there. Priestly role. Priests weren't just ritual leaders. They acted as judges. The high holy days with their mass attendance were a logical time to address legal or practical issues tied to family and property. Boom. Okay? So, yeah, then it talks about the lack of evidence. Boom, boom, boom. But, yeah, these are some of the just reasons why these pilgrimages were important. Now, I want to convert your mindset over to what we're doing here in America. When we first came in and crossed over into this truth, it was just a few men, a few of us young brothers that was watching the apostles and the bishops, elders on YouTube. Very, very early on in our walk, what did we do? We ended up traveling to New York to sit at the feet of the apostles and the bishops, and it completely changed the way that we interacted with each other, the way that we dealt with class and camp. It completely upgraded us. Traveling to New York, I would say, was one of the probably is the most pivotal thing that we did in this walk, as far as growing within this ministry and learning how to, now people call us elders, and creating a culture and a tradition of the school of the prophets of Great Millstone. Those pilgrimages were vital to our growth. It was like traveling to Jerusalem. Now, when so many camps have sprang up over, the last basically, 15 years, and what happened as we got older, we stopped going up to New York as much, because basically we didn't need it. It was just like, do the work. But you got all these camps popping up, and what happened was you had a lot of people started to influx and come in. And don't get me wrong, we vet, and you got to put in that work to be a part of Great Millstone. But that sense of culture, that sense of where you come from, all of those type of things, we was kind of getting away from that. And it led to a lot of bullshit, just to be honest, that what happened within the camps, or even as you had new camp head leaders in different cities and states, to where it was important for us to arrange leadership to go and sit with camps and teach what we had learned directly from the apostles. Or even, sometimes we have the privilege of apostles traveling to different cities, bishops traveling to different cities, and now just to get around or learn who's who and what's what in the different states, we have regional meetings. So we're doing these things that they did back then, but now over here, because over here is where the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua is dwelling, man. Within the ministry, within the body, within the men that believe. Okay? We are the temple. This is the place. This is what we're doing. Okay? So, we have to understand this thing spiritually, as far as just, making sure things are done right and administratively, who's where and what's what, and and overall it's going to be for the glorification of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Of course, that's first, but all these things have to happen, man. The Most High is building something. Okay, so I'm gonna play this last part right here with Elder Yashwamba, just to get the understanding of it, and then close out. Lord willing, that was edifying. That kind of brought some light to. There was a lot more going on than just just going, eating some lamb and leaving. There was a lot of things that was going around when the men would return to Jerusalem, and a lot of business was getting handled. You know what I'm saying? that the Most High had already set in place, okay, when we entered into the land of Canaan. All right.
Let's see here. In 22, and I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it.
And he's reading, for those that are listening in the car, he's reading from Revelation, the 21st chapter, and the 22nd verse.
So ultimately, we won't need a physical temple, all right, to any longer connect us to our power. Under Moses, it was the tabernacle, all right. Under Solomon, it was the temple, okay. But now, ultimately, we have a high priest in the heavens. You see, which ultimately is going to dwell in us, and he is dwelling with us now, starting with the Holy Spirit. His presence is amongst us. Remember, the temple, the purpose of the temple was that the Lord dwelled amongst us. And see, this is where sacrifice took place. This is where the high priest communed with the Heavenly Father to give Israel direction, to give them the law, everything. Well, now we don't have that. We're scattered. So the Lord is dealing with us as a little sanctuary, even as we are scattered among our enemies. So yes, we can keep the holy days. See? Although we know we're operating on faith, although we know that we're not justified by the keeping of the Passover. We're not justified because we keep the Day of Atonement. Technically, Yahushua is our atonement.
That's right.
We could take that stance. We understand what you're saying, right? But why can't we keep all right the holy days to the best of our ability? What's the big problem?
Yeah, so basically you can go watch that when Elder Yashwarm breaks that down. But the point of what was being said is, listen, we've been broken from our land. We broke the covenant. We're rehearsing the righteous acts. Those were some reasons why it was important to go to Jerusalem, and those things are being carried out now in the spirit. Whether you believe it or not, man. So, Lord willing, that was edifying. Like I said, man. With that being said, call hello Yahweh Bashem Yahushua Bashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, bishops of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutation to y'all. Out there pushing the word of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Sincerely and true. Shalom.